Story time with Game Master Mike, and this time it's going to be about The Lion King. Now, I was obsessed with this movie. I watched it at the movies when I was 6 years old. As a matter of fact, it was the very first movie that I've seen in the theaters, and I've fallen in love with it. The animation was awesome, and it was at one point the best-selling Disney movie out there of all time. It is amazing, and I was obsessed with it. As you can see, I got the Lion King on VHS and the Lion King 2 Simba's Pride on Blu-ray. I used to have this on VHS, but I've ended up selling it. But I've bought it back on Blu-ray, and hopefully I'll get it on VHS real soon to complete my Disney collection. Well, I'm going to tell you some stories about it and how it had gotten me into even more trouble than Pokemon. You know, Pokemon had gotten me in trouble when I was a kid. Well, The Lion King had also gotten me in trouble when I was a kid, when I was about 6 years old, and how I got my Christmas present taken away because of something that I did which I shouldn't have done, or I should have waited for it. But here's the story. I was 6 years old at the time. We went to the movies, and I've seen The Lion King when I was 6 years old at the movie theater, which that was the very first movie that I've seen, and I liked it. I've liked going to the movies. I've begged my mom and dad if we can see it again, and they said that cannot wait until we've rented it at the video rental store, and we did, and we watched it, and I fell in love with it. I was so obsessed with it that I wanted to buy merchandise from it. So, here's how I've gotten in trouble. So anyway, when we went to the Mountaineer Mall to do some Christmas shopping, at that time, we were at Walden Books. And I've looked at the bookmarks there, and I've seen this small, it was more like a card, it was the Lion King bookmark with Simba and Nala on it. Dude, I must have it, although it's almost Christmas, that I was wondering if my mom can buy it off of me. So I've took the card out of the shelf, and I showed it to mom, and I've told her, may I have this? And my mom looked at me and says, no, next payday maybe. And so, at that time, it was either no or never. Just fancy excuse. And you know what I did, which I shouldn't have done? I've put it in my coat pocket, and I've taken it. I've stolen it when I was a kid. And so, we left Walden Books and went to JCPenney. So, I've sat on the kiosk for the jewelry while my mom was looking at it, and my dad was there too, and my sister's there. So we've decided to look at the jewelry, and I sat on one of the desks there. And you know what I did? I've gotten the card out of my coat pocket, and I was like spinning it around playing with it until the mall cop came up to me, grabbed my shoulder, and said, "You're coming with me!" And so I had to take the card, and my dad told the mall cop, What did he do this time? What did he do? And my mom and dad was not happy, and I was devastated. So the mall cop dragged me back into Walden Books. I had to return the card to the manager, and I apologized to it. And he took me to the security's office. I was in tears completely. I was crying, which I shouldn't have done. My mom and dad was not happy about it. And so the mall cop explained to me and my parents that shoplifting is a crime, which at that time I felt guilty about it. So, as a punishment from my parents, I had one Christmas gift taken away from me, because at that time it was almost Christmas, and that's why The Lion King had gotten me in trouble. And it had gotten me in trouble again when I was a kid. This time, it was the day after Christmas. You know, gotten that Christmas gift taken away, and I'll bet you anything it was The Lion King on VHS. They have bought me The Lion King, but I gotta understand that I was punished for taking something from the store and leaving it without paying, but I had to pay the price. And so that one gift that I opened, it was a clock radio. So the day after Christmas, it was that morning, I was so obsessed with clocks and inspired by it. So with that clock radio, I've broken the glass on the clock radio because I want to play with the hands so bad without, turning it. And my dad caught me saying that I've broken it and I've gotten into a lot of trouble. And my dad yelled at me and said, "That's $5 off of your allowance. As a matter of fact, you're going to use that money to buy yourself a new clock." And yet again, I was devastated. I've, burst into tears again that time because I was in even more trouble. That I used to be destructive when I was a kid. Use my Sega Genesis and VHS tapes as bowling pins and building blocks. Well, not anymore. I am extra careful. So that same day, we went to Kmart, and my dad and my sister was arguing over a CD that he wanted. Now, that was at the electronics department, and I've seen a whole shelf of Lion King VHS tapes on the shelf, plus along with the clock radio. So I wanted to get the VHS tapes because I want it real bad. I was pretty much intended, if they say like either no, put it back, I was going to pitch a huge fit at the store. Well, apparently here's what happened. So it was either that or either get the clock radio, because right aside from the VHS tapes is the clock radios. So my dad was going to walk up to me to hand me the clock radio and say buy it, but it's not a chance. My dad and my sister was arguing too much that we had to leave the store, and I was about ready to pick up The Lion King on VHS to show to my mom and dad, can I have this? But instead, there's my cat, by the way, there's the real Lion King that came in, as you can tell. My mom and dad dragged me out of the store, and I started crying my eyes out. And then, when we got to the car, my mom and dad was screaming at each other over a CD on the way home. We were going to go to the grocery store that day after that, but we decided to go home and hear my mom and dad screaming at each other over something like that, and over The Lion King, basically. So that tells you why The Lion King had gotten me into even more trouble than Pokemon. It's a huge mistake that I made, which I have never done again. At that time, I was only 6 years old. I've gotten into trouble by the mall cop because of that, which I regret stealing, which is a crime because, I experienced a break-in at my last apartment, got half of my PS2 collection stolen, and all my PSP games that was stolen from me, but I've pretty much regret that. That was back in the past, and I have never done something like that. And so, in 1998, I've bought The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride on VHS, which, not recently, I've ended up selling it because I was moving into my last apartment, and so I can get some spare cash for some other things like food. And so, there you go. To this day, I am now fallen in love with The Lion King. I've been watching it a lot along with the sequel. The Intense, the famous Mufasa's death scene, which touched everybody, even me. So, this is my third copy of, my second copy of The Lion King. The first one I've bought years ago, and I ended up selling it, and I got this last year at Half Price Books, which I'm never going to sell because I'm a huge Lion King fan, and there's also the Lion Guard, which is out on the series. The series is pretty good. I've enjoyed watching it, although it is a midquel, but people don't stand midquels like me. So, there you go, folks. That is my story of the Lion King. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching. There's the real Lion King there.